Why, hello there. Welcome to All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet, and I hope you're enjoying your day, the Geek Way, of course. And right now, we're going to talk about Mandalorian, the Season 2 finale, spoiler territory. If you don't want to hear spoilers, you should not watch this now. You should watch, all of Mandalorian up until the Season 2 finale, which I will be talking about. And then come back, have a listen, see if you agree or disagree with me on things. But before I get into that spoiler territory, if you're enjoying the content of these videos, it'd be cool if you or other people would subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Expand the channel. Have more conversations about geekdom, whether or not you agree or disagree with me. Have more of these conversations. I welcome it. I want to have it. I hope to reach 50 subscribers by the end of this year. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but I'm going for it anyway. Anything you could do will help the channel. Give this video a like. But in the meantime, let's talk about Season 2 finale. As I said in my non-spoiler review, I gave it a solid 8.5, and I think I'd give it an 8.5. I think so. That's where I'm most comfortable giving it. I said 8 to 8.5. Could be a 9, now that I'm thinking about it later. But I'm just going to go through the sequence of events, what I thought about them, what questions I have, and we'll just go from there. So starting really strong at the very beginning of the episode, the Slave One chasing the Imperial Lambda shuttle, carrying the science guy, Dr. Pershing? I forgot his name. That was a good sequence when Boba Fett is able to use an ion laser to disable the Lambda shuttle. And when they go to grab Dr. Pershing, he's the clone engineer, as explicitly stated. It's kind of weird because the Imperial pilots didn't want to die. One of the Imperial pilots was using Dr. Pershing, it doesn't matter, as a hostage so that he can live. But then he was just being a total dick. I get it, the Empire is not filled with good people. But this guy was trying to, survive to the point where he shot his co-pilot. Probably because his co-pilot was just like, no, this is really dumb. And it turns out that the co-pilot was like, oh, I was right. It was really dumb. But it's just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to use him as a hostage. All the while, I'm going to deprecate the rebellion to shoot Cara Dune. I'm just going to deprecate the rebellion. I'm going to talk about how Alderaan was destroyed, and it deserved to be destroyed because I watched it be destroyed from the Death Star, but then you guys destroyed the Death Star. Millions of people died. So I guess we're even. Also, you suck. I did find it cool with the teardrop, the rebellion teardrop, and how that represents Alderaan or someone from Alderaan. At least that's what's implied. But I was just like, man, you should probably stop it or you're going to get shot. And then what happened? He got shot. And he deserved to get shot. I don't wish for people's deaths, but I'm like, yeah, you kind of asked for that, bud. And then freaking we go from him, the clone engineer, finally being held captive and taken by Mando and everyone else in the Slave One. And we get to when Mando and Boba walk into the bar to confront Bo-Katan, and I forgot the other character's name. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. It was interesting. I mean, I like that dynamic of whether or not Boba Fett is a Mandalorian. He's not, but the way that I view Boba Fett is he's kind of think about the Jewish culture. You have the Orthodox Jewish people, then you have the secular Jewish people, and Boba, would be more of a secular Mandalorian. But that being said, he also says, I never said I was a Mandalorian, and he doesn't try to prove that he's a Mandalorian, and that's totally fine. And it was so weird, because it wasn't too weird, but Bo-Katan recognized the voice of a clone, and Boba Fett is, in canon, a clone, obviously. It's in the movies. And then, man, they just insult him, calling him his dad a donor, so they insulted his father, of whom the armor belongs to. And then the fight was actually very short, but it was pretty cool. Shows that Boba Fett, even in the age of 40-something, is still a good hand-to-hand contender. Yeah, but the other Mandalorian, she can hold her own. And then we get, from there, we go to the next scene. So Mando successfully recruits Bo-Katan. We go to the next scene, and it's back on the Slave One. And they're trying to figure out a plan to infiltrate Moff Gideon's Star Cruiser, or light cruiser. And I thought it was really weird that the clone engineer, Dr. Pershing, was like helping Mando. Not in the sense of he wouldn't have a reason to, but I don't know why he was helping them out. Like, it was very odd to me. I mean, I guess at that point he is captured by the Rebellion or the New Republic, since Cara Dune is an officer in the New Republic, or she has a position in the New Republic, excuse me. But I just didn't understand it. He was just like, no, I'm going to help you. Totally going to help you. And my question is why? Like, what motivated him to help? Was it just plot convenience, or was there a reason to? I didn't have that reason. I didn't understand. If it's been explained in Mando, I probably missed it. Someone explain that to me. But that's when they also come up with the act of the Lambda shuttle. And, okay, anything with Boba Fett, I'm biased. I love the character so much. And them playing that act where the Lambda shuttle and the Slave One come from hyperspace, and he's trying to shoot it down, and them calling for help and emergency landing. That was a good sequence. That was a pretty solid sequence. And them blocking off, essentially, the TIE fighters, just kind of blocking them off. There's only 2 that got out of the docking area. And seeing that sequence of them like, oh, we got to crash land, we're being chased by the Slave One, it had that intensity to it, all the while we as an audience know that it's an act. So I could see how it would be convincing to the Empire at that point, except Moff Gideon, because he knows everything. Whatever. And just seeing the Slave One, okay, the part where I was like, yay, is when the Slave One was flying away, and it shoots backwards and takes out the TIE fighters, and then Boba Fett goes into hyperspace. I was just like, that was so cool. I love that. But also, like, we don't have any more Boba Fett for pretty much the entirety of the episode. So, personally, it was disappointing. Was he necessary, like, the entirety of the episode? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, that's just a very personal gripe, and it's not even a big deal. It doesn't hurt or make this episode any better. And then, after they crash land, you have the 4 characters. You have Boba's partner in crime, you have Cara Dune, you have Bo-Katan, and then the other Mandalorian lady. I can't remember her name. I can't remember both of their names. I should have wrote these down. Anyway, they all come out, and they come out guns a-blazing, taking out Imperial officers, stormtroopers. That was a cool sequence of events. That was extremely well shot. The camera work and the direction for that, I was entirely impressed with. 4 people being total badasses and just taking down people of the Empire. And I don't know if a lot of people got this, but this is kind of implicit social justice. I don't know if I would call it social justice, but this isn't a bad thing by any means. Actually, I thought this was extremely well done. It was a good portrayal of feminism. There we go. Good portrayal of feminism. And I'm saying this as a white dude, so feel free to have differences with me. But it didn't... This sequence of events, they didn't pander to an audience. It wasn't virtue signaling. It wasn't explicit virtue signaling, being like, look at them, they're badass. You know what else? They're women. It was more of just like, hey, look at these badasses. Those are some badass women. All right. They're pretty badass. I love them. Like, it was awesome. It was so well shot. And it reminded me a lot of A New Hope, when Leia would grab the blaster and just start shooting back, and you have people even in the 70s that are being like, oh, Leia, she's a strong female character. I'm going to pre. So, just 4 badasses being totally badass. That was so well done. I give it so much praise in that sequence of events. And then this is when Moff Gideon decides, all right, let's activate the Dark Troopers. And then they establish, it takes a few minutes to get the Dark Troopers up and running, but I question the musical choices they made this episode. Because the Dark Trooper theme with the dubstep, That was really silly. I thought it was really silly, especially when juxtaposed to the next sequence. But just hearing like the blah, 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 and then the next scene immediately after is Din Djarin or Mando getting off the ship. So you hear blah, 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 followed by woo 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 woo. It seemed really out of place, especially for Star Wars. And I have nothing against dubstep or EDM. I used to be biased against it years ago. I've been a lot more open to the genre. It just didn't fit for me. I don't think it fit. I thought it was a little bit silly and just kind of out there. But anyway, we get to Din Djarin going out of the ship while Cara Dune and Bo-Katan and all of them, they're taking down more of the stormtroopers. And I thought it was, okay, this is the first time that I remember a gun being jammed in Star Wars. Like one of their blaster rifles. And that was, I forgot what blaster rifle that Cara Dune is holding. It's like heavy weapons equipment. And it gets jammed. And it wasn't bad. It was just more of like, how to get jammed. I'm no gun expert, but I'm talking about like blaster rifles, because like in the games it's either do you have to like put in another magazine, or does it run off of a fuel cell, and how did that fuel cell, or how did the gun get jammed in conjunction with the fuel cell? I don't know. I'm no expert. Someone could probably explain that to me. I'm open to it. I mean, it was cool though. Like, she beat a stormtrooper over the head with her gun. I was just like, all right, I'll take it. And also showed the teamwork aspect that they all had and how well these four characters work together. So it added to that. And then the gun gets unjammed and she's like, all right, like, you stand back for me, and just mows down a bunch of stormtroopers. I'm like, yay! Woo! But it felt like the jam just happened. I didn't understand how or why. Someone explain it to me. And the next sequence of events is finally when Din Djarin gets to the Dark Troopers. And the Dark Troopers are ready. They're ready to roll out. And he's just like, oh no, I have to stop this. So he manages to close the door, but one of the Dark Troopers grabs a hold of the door and starts opening it. And this is when you could tell this was created by Jon Favreau and that this was written by Jon Favreau. Because this reminded me of Iron Man 1. Iron Man 1, when Iron Man gets shot down by the tank, and he goes up and you see the front of his helmet. And this Dark Trooper sequence just reminded me entirely of Iron Man. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. Like, I like this. I personally like it because I see a correlation with my favorite character. Thank you, Jon Favreau, and the director. I need to write these down. I forgot the director's name. Anyway, there's the fight between Din Djarin and the Dark Trooper. And there's a lot of impressive camera shots. When Din Djarin lights it on fire from the inside and it just kind of turns its head and then starts fighting Mando again. Like, that was really good camera work. That was a great angle that they used for that. And it just made the Dark Trooper look all that much more menacing, which is excellently done. My main question with this sequence is, what are the Dark Troopers, like, what's the material made of? Like, they're not human, they're obviously robotic. Lasers don't work on them. The miniature missiles don't work on them. Fire doesn't work on them. But they get cut like butter by Luke, as we would see later. I'm not going to get too into it. I'm just like, what are these things made of? Because I know the Empire commandeered some Beskar. So I thought the armor could be made of Beskar. I don't think it is, because it can withstand a lightsaber, as we have seen, no problem. So that's just kind of an internal question. It's not important to answer, but I was just like, what? Why are these things like impenetrable except to lightsabers? But moving on, he takes it down with the Beskar spear, just by impaling it in the head, and you see the oil spills out of the neck area, and then he ejects the other Dark Troopers. I was just like, did you forget these guys can fly? Because they could fly, they have jet boosters. And it was basically like, all right, they're ejected now, but we're definitely going to see them later. And sure enough, obviously, that happens. But we, as an audience, I don't know if Mando exactly remembered that, but we as an audience from episode 6 know they're capable of flying. Well, then, after the Dark Troopers get ejected, Mando is finally able to get to where the child is. But who is there? Because we've already seen the other 4 characters. They just got into the bridge of the ship, and Moff Gideon isn't there. And then it goes to Mando finding the child. And who is it? It's Moff Gideon. Oh! And the Darksaber is lit. Oh! It's above the child's head. Whoa! And this is another part I thought was very silly. Not that Moff Gideon was there, but the way that Moff Gideon is portrayed. I expected there to be a fight between Mando and Moff Gideon. Like, that was going to happen. I figured he would become the next Mandalore on accident. But friggin' Moff Gideon, he's like the most anime Star Wars character that I've seen so far overtly. Maybe Thrawn could be correlated there, but he's like a good written, like a properly written anime villain. Moff Gideon is just like, I know X, Y, and Z. I knew X, Y, and Z would happen. And there was a direct quote. Assume the fact that I know everything all the time. And I was just like, what? This is Sosuke Aizen from Bleach? Like, I knew this and I was prepared for it. And this is what I expected to happen. Also, I bet they're panicking right now. They're panicking right now, aren't they? Because they couldn't find the Darksaber. I knew they were looking for the Darksaber, but you wanted the child. It was so anime. I thought that was really silly. Just Moff Gideon just being prepared for everything. And that's fine, don't get me wrong, but just how explicit. Like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, he's Sosuke Aizen, like he's the Uchiha guy from Naruto. Madara. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then expected right after that, he does the, well, and I also question this and how Mando just didn't know better, apparently, that Moff Gideon was a total asshole and a liar. Because he's just like, you could take the child, and then you're going to leave the ship, and we'll part ways and never see each other again, hopefully. And because the sequence before that, he's just like, put down the gun, kick it toward me. All right, cool. Anime villain sequence, but I'm cool with you. We're cool. I don't need the child anymore. Take him, just leave, and we'll part ways forever. And then, but somehow Mando just forgot that he fought him and his forces at the like episode 7 and 8 of the first season. And I think what should have happened, and it didn't happen, so I can't correct it, but you would think that someone with combat experience like Mando and dealing with people as a bounty hunter, he had to deal with plenty of liars. Like, the first person that he dealt with was a liar. He wouldn't tell him, like, hey, get back. I need you to be this far away from me. I will take the child, and then we'll part ways. But no, as expected, Moff Gideon just starts slashing at his back, and the Beskar doesn't do anything. And then Mando's just like, I got the spear! And it seems like a pretty even fight, but you could also see, like, the Darksaber is written, like, it's going through the ship, going through some of the metal. It's a pretty metal sequence. But Din Djarin comes out on top. Yay! He won! He took down Moff Gideon. Things are good. Nope! Because then he takes Moff Gideon to the bridge, and Bo-Katan is just like, what happened? Just like, oh, Cara Dune, just like, oh, Moff Gideon's captured, so we're good. That was a big bounty on his head. We're good. Followed by, like, no, she's asking about the Darksaber. And as many Star Wars fans, like, who aren't as casual, know that the Darksaber has a lot of importance to Mandalorian lore, in that it's a feat of combat to take the Darksaber. And you could see Bo-Katan is just like, no, I want to take down Moff Gideon and grab that lightsaber. That's what I wanted to do. But it didn't happen that way, and I just thought it was a really amusing sequence of events, just having Of course, anime villain Gideon just being like, you don't know. The Darksaber, you're the king of Mandalorians. You will be the next Mandalore. You will rule the throne. But you have it now, and it has to be fought through combat. You didn't know? You didn't know? Makes me like, why wouldn't Mando know that? But and Bo-Katan's just like, he's right. We have to fight. And it's not resolved this episode. It's probably going to be third season or whatever. No big deal. Because the reason it's not resolved... Oh, sorry. Before I go there, one is just like, it has to be fought through combat. And Mando's just like, I yield. Take it. Like, I don't give a shit about this. I don't want to be a Mandalore. I want the child. I have the child. Now that I have the child, we can part ways. But she'll be a fake ruler. I'm Anime Gideon. Though that'll be interrupted by the Dark Troopers, who were just ejected, flying into the ship. Whoa! Can't believe it! And at least Cara Dune knows, like, they're not easy, and... Yeah. You just fought a Dark Trooper, didn't you, Mando? You had a tough time, didn't you, Mando? I'm Anime Gideon. I'm anime villain Gideon. Anyway. And I still think it's silly. It's my bias. When they start flying into the ship and... Oh, man. And then they show Moff Gideon giving his, like, speech, and then he gets knocked down by Cara Dune onto the steps. And I question this part a lot when he's like, oh, there's a blaster pistol right under my cape. And you'd think for 4 people who just infiltrated a ship, one of them having war experience, they would have cleared the weapons of all the bodies. And they didn't clear the weapons. Like, they had the security cameras on the ship. They knew where everyone was at all times. But they didn't clear the weapons, and Moff Gideon is just like, I'm taking advantage of this. There's a gun. I'm going to hide it. Like, I think Cara Dune should have known better. Like, commandeer the weapons and be sure that no one else can get into contact with them. Whatever. That's just another peeve. And then, you know, the Dark Troopers are ready to... They start punching the doors, and the doors are getting damaged. They're ready to infiltrate. And the crew would have gotten wrecked. Up until you see something coming from hyperspace. That's an X-Wing fighter. And at first, my immediate thought was just like, oh man, how did Ahsoka get an X-Wing fighter? Wait a minute, it's Luke Skywalker! Oh, my nostalgia and my happiness, like, peaked when I knew, as soon as I figured out who it was, like, tears were swelling, like, building up in my eyes. I'm like, I don't know for sure yet, but I'm pretty positive it's Luke Skywalker. Oh my god. And then you see the guy in the robe and the camera's just taking out, just cutting these Dark Troopers like butter. And then you see the green lightsaber in the cargo area with a leather glove. And I'm like, it's Luke Skywalker. That's like the major point where I was in bliss. I was in so much bliss. Even the second time watching it. I've watched this twice already, and I was just like, oh, Luke Skywalker, my childhood hero. Like, Boba Fett was my first favorite character, but my first childhood hero, aside from non-fictional person Tony Gwynn, fictional character was Luke Skywalker. Like, I wanted to be a Jedi as a child. And to see my hero back in action, where Mando struggled with one Dark Trooper, he's just like, cut these things like butter. Super easy. I'm a Jedi. I'm at the peak of my power. Maybe not at the peak of his power, but obviously. But we see that Luke is on a whole other level compared to where he was at Return of the Jedi. And that was just to see him be so much more elevated. I was so much in bliss. And he's just wrecking shit. And you could see that at one point, the hallway before it goes into the bridge, you could see that it's a mirror to what happened in Rogue One when Darth Vader had his hallway scene wrecking the rebels. Well, Luke had his scene wrecking the Imperials, and who happened to be robots, and literally crushing them. Like, he literally crushed one. And I was just like, oh my god. And Mando's just like, yep, that's a Jedi. Open the doors. And then we had the scene that no one wanted to have come, but had to come. The very bittersweet scene between Grogu, Din Djarin, before Grogu is given, or the child is given to Luke Skywalker for training. And this was a big moment. I teared up. I teared up like a bitch. I was hit pretty hard by this scene. Because, one, we know what's going to happen. Mando's going to complete his quest, and probably by the 3rd season, he's going to team up with Bo-Katan. Or there's going to be a rivalry between Bo-Katan where she becomes an ally and a supporting character, but at some point she's an antagonist. I don't know. That's my guess. Doesn't matter. Though this part where he's just like, yeah, it's time to go, kid. And he finally takes off his helmet for Grogu. Probably heavily influenced by Bo-Katan. And Pedro Pascal delivered. He said so little, and by having that silence, it said a lot more, and it's a testament to his acting. Because you felt the pain on his face, and you felt his body language, and you know that him parting with the child is one of the most difficult things he had to do ever. And it's added when he tears up, and Luke's just like, "Oh, may the Force be with you." Just being stoic as hell. He felt a little too stoic for me, but it doesn't matter. Like, Luke becomes a Jedi Master, essentially, so that's no big deal. But stoic Luke, and then that... Actually, now that I think about it, Luke being stoic was necessary for the scene. Because the scene wasn't about him. It was about Din Djarin separating from Grogu. So get rid of the emotional element from Luke Skywalker, and then you just have the element between those two. And, man, this was so bittersweet. But it was a good ending. A very good ending to Season 2. Then you have the credits, and then I had to look ahead and see if there was an after-credit scene, because if you go on Disney Plus, there's like a huge time gap. And I'm like, what? That's a little bit bigger. And we're at Jabba's palace. Like, back on Tatooine, saw Jabba's palace, and I was just like, oh my god, more Boba Fett. More Boba Fett. And people are getting shot down left and right. And then it's Boba's partner in crime. And then right behind her, just up the stairway, is Boba Fett. Going up to Bib Fortuna. I don't know how he survived the Sarlacc pit. I thought the ship exploded, but Bib Fortuna survived, and he looked like he ate Jabba the Hutt. And him being like, "I thought you died. I'm so happy to see you." And just Boba point blank shoots him in the chest, and he dies on the spot. His body is pushed off, and Boba takes the throne. And then a few seconds later, it fades to black, and it says, "The Book of Boba Fett." I'm like, oh my god! Like, as a Boba Fett fan, I was so happy. I can't wait until December 2021. Well, I'm going to have to, but I don't want to wait. Because, I'm so happy Boba's back. I've been so happy since episode 6. So that's an announcement that Disney didn't make. But they're just like, we're going to save this for the show. And I was a happy boy. I was a happy boy. So, there goes the spoiler review. Again, I'll give this about an 8.5 out of 10. Some parts I thought were a little bit silly. Moff Gideon being an anime villain, the dubstep for the Dark Troopers. And I have some questions about it. First off, have the rules of the Jedi Order changed under Luke Skywalker? Is attachment allowed? Because I'm assuming that they're going to have something for Mando later, and he and Grogu are going to reunite. Maybe not like super emotional attachments, but I wonder if Luke is just like, hey, this is a problem with the Jedi before, this is why they were brought down, let's change the rules, kind of like in the Legends continuity. And then, who saves Grogu before the second purge of the Jedi from Kylo Ren? I don't know if it's the second purge, but when the Knights of Ren take down the Jedi. I wonder if Mando's going to save him, or Grogu escapes. I don't know. Like, that's going to be interesting. I also want to know, it didn't go into it that much in Star Wars Rebels when Bo-Katan had the Darksaber, because I know the Mandalorian Purge would happen in 9 ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. where Moff Gideon led it. But how did Bo-Katan get the Darksaber in the first place? I don't remember. Someone please remind me. Because in Clone Wars, Palpatine took down Maul, who had the Darksaber, so Palpatine would have technically been Mandalore. I don't know how she got it from Palpatine, but whatever. It's not important. Point is, we have it where we're at now. Mando is Mandalore, even though he didn't want to be. I'm assuming Bo-Katan and Mando are going to fight. Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, Jedi training Grogu, X-Wing. It was a good episode. So, in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this again. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to subscribe. Give this video a like. Share it if you want. Please comment. I want to see what you thought about the episode. I want to see what you had to think. See if you have any disagreements. If you agree with me on certain areas. What you thought was really good. What you thought wasn't so good. Talk to me. I want to have a conversation because we're in this all day. The geek way, of course. In the meantime, I'm Jet. Please continue to enjoy your day. The geek way, of course. Bye, boo.